faves, it's Jessie. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to day 2 of Bookmas. Today we have a fun little sit down chatty video. I do have a lot of reading vlogs planned, but obviously in order to upload every other day I do have to have some sit down videos. I cannot be reading at that quite fast pace, but today we are going to be going through my 25 books I have to read in 2025. This may be the final year that I do this kind of type tag, I guess, just because I feel like once we get to 26 we're getting into quite a large number of books, and obviously I read about 150 a year, but I do still want to not be just constrained by this list. So first things first, I think let's go through my 24 to read in 2024. I haven't necessarily been making a deliberate effort to keep up with this. I've kind of just had it in the back of my mind, but it's not been something that I have had a solid kind of, I guess, go at doing. But I split this one up into 4 or 5 categories. I think 5 categories. So we had 2024 releases, series, TBR veterans, intimidating books, and anticipated books just in general. And I've done okay. I think just looking off the top of my head it looks like I've done about half. So I have read all of the 2024 releases, which is Funny Story, Magnolia Parks, The Last Murder at the End of the World, The Reappearance of Rachel Price, Just for the Summer, and Not in Love. I did replace that final one. It was initially Totally and Completely Fine by Lisa Sussman, but the release date for that got pushed back to 2025, so obviously I had to replace it, so I replaced it with Not in Love. So 6 for 6 so far, and then here is where we do go downhill. In my series category, Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. This was in order to help me kind of get through the ACOTAR series, because obviously I don't want to be reading both at once, so I wanted to read ACOTAR in its entirety and then start Throne of Glass. I still don't even own a copy of Throne of Glass, and I've only read the second in the ACOTAR series, so that's a bit of a flop. And then also I put on here Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. There is a chance that I might read this and others on this list towards the end of the year, because it has been on TBR, but it's not super likely, so I'm still counting that as a flop, unfortunately. Then we have The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I read that, and I read that entire series. One of Us is Black by Karen M. McManus. I read that, and that completed that series. And then Believe Me by Tahira Mafi, which completed the Shatter Me series. Then we moved on to TBR veterans, where first one was Not Here to Be Liked by Michelle Quach. I have not read this. It's like a YA romance, I think. Then I did read More Than This by Patrick Ness, which I've had for ages, one of my like childhood favourites. So that's 10. Then I did read A Book of Lies by Terry Terry. Well, I actually DNF'd this one about 100 pages in or so, but I'm counting that because it's off the list, it's off my TBR. And then we did have Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This one is wrapped up, so I could pick it for my wrapped up video, but it's unlikely percentage wise in terms of how many I've got left, but like there is a chance. So that's 11, I believe. Then we move on to intimidating books. Firstly, we have 2 classics. We have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and we have Dracula by Bram Stoker. I do have plans to read Dracula before the end of the year, so I am going to count that as a yes, so that's going to be 12, and that brings us up to over halfway, so that's actually better than I thought. I haven't technically read it yet, but I will be reading it in the next 2 weeks, so I would consider that successful. And then we have Future of Geography by Tim Marshall and Empire of Pain by Patrick Radden Keefe. They were both non-fictions that I also read, so that brings us up to 14, I believe. And then finally we have anticipated books. I've only read one of these, which was Checkmate by Ali Hazelwood, so that brings us up to 15 out of 24. The others on that list were Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, Truly Devious, Never, and The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I do actually have plans to read Addie LaRue as well. So maybe that's 16 out of 24. So not awful. It could be better, but it's not terrible. Do you know what I mean? Especially considering I wasn't like necessarily deliberately trying to read them, if that makes sense. Like I didn't do specific videos or anything like that. So now going into my 25 books to read in 2025, I've divided this up similarly into 5 similar sized categories. For this one we have 2025 releases, we have TBR veterans, and we have series, which is the same as previously. And then replacing the intimidating books, we have backlist faves. So this is like one of my favorite authors, or it's got 4 of my favorite authors. They're kind of backlist, and by backlist I'm basically choosing books that were published prior to me kind of finding out about the author, if that makes sense. So not new releases by them, but like their backlist titles that I'm excited to get to. And then finally we have generalized anticipated reads. A lot of these are books that came out this year, or books that I'm just really excited about. So without further ado, let's just get straight into our 2025 releases. releases. So first things first, one of the two I'm most excited for next year, and this is a solid 5-star prediction. This is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This is her next romance release, and I believe it's not part of any of her interconnected standalone series. I gave Just for the Summer and Part of Your World 5 stars. I gave Yours Truly a 4.5. She's very quickly become a favourite romance author of mine, so I read anything she writes and I'm very much excited to get to this one. I think it'll be really, really cute. I actually don't know the plot, but I'm sure I will absolutely adore it, so this is one that I'm going to be reading probably like on release day. And then second we have Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I love Grady Hendrix. I think he's my favourite horror author. He does really kind of camp fun horror books. I love the US cover for this. The UK one, not so great, but the US cover is gorgeous. I've heard mixed things from some of my friends who have read ARCs. They didn't love it, but I am very much in the minority of Grady Hendrix opinions, because a lot of books that people love by him I haven't liked as much, and people's kind of generalized least favorites like Horror Store is my favorite by him. So hopefully that tracks and I do still enjoy Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. I think title-wise it sounds right up my street, so fingers crossed, but obviously we will see. Then we have another one that I have pre-ordered, and that is Hot Wax by ML Rio. She wrote If We're Villains, which is a 5-star, and then she came out with a novella this year, which was Graveyard Shift, both of which I enjoyed, but If We're Villains was a solid 5 for me. This is her second ever, I believe, full-length novel, so I'm very much excited for this. This is another 5-star prediction and I absolutely cannot wait to get to it. Sorry if the angle changed slightly, but our fourth book is then My Friends by Frederick Backman. Frederick Backman I don't think has had a new release since the final one in the Beartown series, which was a couple of years ago, last year maybe, if not the year before actually, and he is, I would potentially argue, my favourite author, and I absolutely cannot wait for this release. It sounds like just, it's going to be excellent, do you know what I mean? Like, all his books are filled with so much heart and just like excellent writing, so I cannot wait for that one. I'm like over the moon excited. That one is probably the other one that I'm like super excited for. And then finally the classic, we have A Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, of course. She is like my second favourite, I think, up there with Abby Jimenez, romance author. I love all her books, so I'm really excited for this one, and the covers are just gorgeous, so I love her books and getting them on pre-order. They're so much fun. So those are my 5 2025 releases that I have on my radar on here. If you guys want me to do a separate like 2025 releases video, like anticipated, do let me know. These are just my top 5. I have a lot more that I'm excited about, but do let me know, and I will very much do that towards the end of Bookmas, maybe in the new year. And then we move on to TBR Veterans. So this is books that I have bought prior to 2022, I believe, and books that have been on my TBR kind of since I was into reading when I was younger. So we are kind of getting into the less amount of books here. We're trying to finally cut this down, which is exciting because obviously I want to have newer books on my TBR. So we have firstly the Atlas 6, which is probably the one on here that I'm most excited for. I honestly don't know why I haven't got around to it yet. I think it's just the length. She's a chunky girl, but this is kind of really up my street. It's like dark academia fantasy, so I definitely think I will enjoy it. I have had mixed things, so I think overall positive, most people enjoy it, so I'm very much looking forward to that one. Then we have The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I read The Silent Patient and didn't enjoy it, and then I have The Fury, which got very bad reviews, and I think The Maidens kind of had mixed reviews, so unsure. But again, this is also dark academia, so I should technically enjoy it, but obviously we will have to wait and see. Then number 3, this one is wrapped up this year, so it could be read at the end of the year, but again, percentage wise of the books I have, the likelihood of this coming up, it's slightly unlikely, but that is Eleanor Oliphant Is Completely Fine. I've heard really excellent things. This was wrapped up as part of the best books according to ratings, so obviously I've heard excellent things. It is one that I'd be very happy to unwrap. It's probably like a 4 something star prediction for me, and if I don't get to it this year, I obviously do want to read it next year. And similarly also wrapped up in the best section is This Is Going to Hurt by Adam Kay. This is a non-fiction I'm really excited to get to. This is a 5-star prediction as well. I do really enjoy non-fiction, and this is about working in the NHS. It's pretty famous, at least in the UK. It's been a very popular book. I think it came out a few years ago, but I'm very much looking forward to getting around to that. And then finally for this section, we have Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is one of the oldest books that I've got since getting back into reading, and I don't know why I haven't read it yet, because I've enjoyed both Seven Husbands and Daisy Jones, so it goes to show that I probably will give this at least a 4-star, but I don't know why. I've just been putting it off, or I haven't picked it up for some weird reason. Then we move on to series that I want to complete or finish. One of my main goals, spoiler, for 2025 is going to be to binge / complete series more. I really want to kind of back-to-back read a series. I think that will really help with my enjoyment of the books and the series altogether, but also really help with actually getting through and finishing off a series. So for this one, we have a couple that I don't actually own, but I own other ones in the series and I will go on to buy them. Firstly, we have The Winners by Frederick Backman. As I kind of mentioned, this was his last release before his 2025 one, and it's the final book in the Beartown series. I've read the first one but not the second, so I'd want to reread the first and then go through the whole series again. I think I might do that kind of in a video. I'm really excited because I do love Beartown. It's one of my favourite books of all time, so I'm very much excited to finish off the series, though The Winners is like huge. I think it's like at least 600 pages, absolutely massive, but I'm very much excited, so that'll be a really fun one to finish off. And then on the topic of massive books, we have A Court of Silver Flames, which is the final ACOTAR book that is released at the moment. So I have read the first two. I read ACOTAR last year, and then recently in my last video I read A Court of Mist and Fury, and I actually really enjoyed it, and it made me really want to pick up the next book, and I definitely don't want to leave it quite as long. I do want to pick up A Court of Wings and Ruin towards the start of next year, and then probably binge the series again in like a series reading vlog. So I'm really excited to get to that. I also think it will hopefully make me like more invested in the characters and stuff if I am kind of binging them and not forgetting about aspects. Then we have Finale, I don't know, by Stephanie Garber, which is the final book in the Caraval series. I've read Caraval, and then I have a copy of Legendary, and I really want to get onto the Ballad of Broken Hearts series because everybody adores it, and I do want to read Caraval first just so I have kind of the context, because if you tell me that like my enjoyment will be increased by this much if I read an entire book series before reading something that I actually want to read, I will read that entire book series. I need to like maximize my enjoyment and my understanding at all times if possible. So it's a bit obsessive, but I just can't skip the series even if it's an option. That's why I have to do it with Shadow and Bone, because I actually really want to read Six of Crows, but I have to read the entire Shadow and Bone series first. I just had to, deep like within me, it's like a need. I just like have that completionist kind of nature. Then we have The Every by Dave Eggers. I think it's just a duology actually. It follows up The Circle, which I did enjoy. I read that back in like 2022, but The Every is like a chonker of a book as well. I think this is like 700 pages or something too, and I do want to finish it because obviously I would just need to finish that one book and then finish off the series. However, she's long, so she's scary pretty much, and I don't actually know where we're going to go because I feel like the first book ended off reasonably well. It's kind of about like a social media company that's kind of like controlling the lives almost and gathering so much data on the people that use it and stuff. It's about like privacy and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just interested to see where that book goes if I actually ever pick it up. And then finally I put City of Fallen Angels on here. I'm not gonna lie, don't know which book this is in the Shadowhunter series. I basically just want to make a bunch of progress in that series. I've started City of Bones and I'm reading that in a video coming up, and I'm enjoying it so far. I do have the next 3 books. I want to read all 3 of them next year and then also move on to, I think it's the Infernal Devices and stuff like that, or the Dark Artifices, I can't quite remember, but it's a very much like a long interconnected series with other series interconnected. I've put City of Fallen Angels down. It could be the second, it could be the fourth, like I don't know. It's like City of Glass, City of Bones, City of Ashes, I don't know, but I want to read them all, but I've just put that one on this list. So if it's the second one, it's very easy. If it's the fourth, it's slightly more difficult for me. We will see in editing.
So it is the fourth in the series, but it actually, I believe, comes after 3 additional books that you read after the third one. So technically it's the 7th in a series, so great job by me. I'm not going to change it on my 25 and 25 list, but that is now the 7th book in a series on my TBR, where I've just read half of the first one. Cool, great, no, love that for me. That was really smart.
Then we move on to backlist faves. Honestly, I had in my mind kind of some of Frederick Backman's books for this, but then after I put him down for 2025 releases and series, I was like, let's have a little bit of variety. So we've just got 4 in this category, whereas it's been 5 in the previous ones, and then we have 6 in the next one. So first things first, we had The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. Like I mentioned, absolutely adore her and her writing. I'm really excited for Say You'll Remember Me, as I mentioned at the start of the video, but The Friend Zone is one of her kind of backlist series that I just haven't got around to reading. I don't actually own copies, but they're not exactly difficult to get my hands on, so I really want to read this entire series. And of a similar vein, Sarah Adams, I really want to read The Match by her. I do have a copy of this, and they've recently been republished and I believe slightly re-edited. They were like her first proper published books, so I'm excited to get to those. Then we have, as I mentioned, Grady Hendrix earlier, another Grady Hendrix book. I tried to make this reasonably easy-ish for myself and have authors that I am excited for. This is the only book on this backlist that I haven't actually read yet, and that is We Sold Our Souls, which is sounds really interesting. It's like the like selling yourself like success in a rock band or something. So I think it sounds really, really great. And then finally we have a non-fiction, which is The Snakehead by Patrick Radden Keefe. He is one of my favourite non-fiction authors. I'm absolutely obsessed with everything I've read from him. This one I think came out reasonably recently, but again, it was before I had heard about him. So I'm excited to get to that. Finally, for our last category, we have anticipated reads. A lot of these came out this year. Other ones are just kind of ones that I'm excited about in general. So first things first, we have She's Always Hungry by Liza Clark. This is a short story collection by the author of Boy Parts and Penance, and I've read Penance and I absolutely adored it, so I'm really, really excited about this. I think it's like a feminist kind of short story collection, and I did buy this in my most recent Waterstones order, so you will see that soon. And then next up we have Murder Road by Simone St. James. This has got very mixed reviews, but I think I might like it. I still think that I might like it. I've got the gorgeous Evernight edition. I'm absolutely obsessed with it, and I've enjoyed Simone St. James's previous book, so hopefully I'll enjoy this too, but we'll see. It's just one that I'm very excited about, kind of like a horror thriller type of book. Then we have The Gathering by CJ Tudor. This is her most recent release, I believe, maybe, and this one is like a small town with vampires, I think, like a horror thriller again, so very much excited for that. That sounds right up my street. And then next one, this is a bit of a random one because it is technically a series, but I don't actually own the second one yet. One of my lovely friends is unhauling it, so I will be getting it from her. But this is Daydream by Hannah Grace. Again, I could have put it in series, but they're more interconnected. This is the one of the Maple Hills series that I'm most excited about. I thought Icebreaker was okay, but the tropes in Daydream seem much more up my alley. I think it's a bit fluffier, less kind of smut heavy and stuff like that. And then we have Imposter Syndrome by Joseph Knox. I have this on my Kindle. This was the author of True Crime Story, which is one of my favourite mystery thrillers ever. That one's mixed media. This one I don't think is, but I think it's like a secret identity type of thriller book, and I am excited for that. And then finally, a very famous one, we have Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This was, I think, one of the Amazon best-selling books of last year or something like that. This one has a point of view that comes from an octopus, and something random that I love in books is animal POVs. I absolutely love it, so I'm very much excited to get to this one. I think I might like it, and I think it's going to have that kind of same thing I like in Richard Osman and Frederick Backman, where it's like really kind of like heartfelt, emotional, like what it means to be human type writing. So that is my 25 to read in 2025. So this video is a little bit of a quicker one, but obviously more reading vlogs to come. I'm currently working on the Goodreads reading vlog. She's long, and I'm running out of time for that one because the vote closes on Thursday. But please let me know if you are planning on reading any of these books in 2025. If you have read any of them, do let me know down below. I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions. If you made it to this point, you can leave a little octopus emoji down below, and I love you very much for making it to the end. If you want to watch one of my other videos, there'll be two on the screen now to pick from, as well as a linked up in the cards from earlier. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.